Hi, it's Monkey Gibble. Again, I know I'm late. I'll probably be on time in the future though. But I'm going to go a little bit more in detail about the San Antonio trade than I did with the Dallas Los Angeles one, Luka Doncic, as the things to talk about are a little bit less obvious. The other night, a three-team trade happened, centered around De'Aaron Fox, Zach Lavine, and some picks. Didn't even feel crazy because we were all numbed by the absolute fever dream that was the Doncic AD trade the night before. Thank you, Nico Harrison. I'm not a Mavs fan, and I thank God for that every day. To set this up, a few weeks ago ish, De'Aaron Fox came out and said that he would be signing with the San Antonio Spurs at the end of his contract, which is in around 2 years. So with this, obviously, trade rumors start coming out, and the predicament is: do the Spurs trade for Fox now and give up assets to get him, or do we just sign him with cap space and not lose anything in like 2 years? This was kind of a predicament because we thought that in order for the Spurs to get De'Aaron Fox, they would have to give up one of their valuable young pieces, whether that be Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, or Keldon Johnson, and one of the valuable Hawks picks that they have, with the Hawks plummeting down the standings. At the point of recording this, they've lost 8 out of their last 9, and one of their best players, Jalen Johnson, is out for the year. Not only did the Spurs not have to give up a good young player in this deal, they didn't even give up one of the Hawks picks either. Anyways, it was a three-team deal with the Spurs, Kings, and Bulls. The trade was the Spurs got De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin to make the salary work. The Kings got Zach Lavine, Sadie Sissoko. I don't even know who that is. A 2025 first-round pick from the Hornets, a 2027 first from the Spurs, a 2031 first from Minnesota, and 3 second-round picks from the Nuggets, Bulls, and Bulls again. The Bulls got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Herter, and their own 2025 first round pick back from the Spurs. Now, from the Spurs side, this is a huge win. The Spurs are showing exactly how to build around and promote a generational prospect. By year 2, they have surrounded him with young talent like Castle, Vassell, and Sohan, as well as veterans to lead the locker room like Barnes and Paul, and have now officially gotten him a co-star in the middle of their prime. And like I said earlier, to get the steal done, we thought they would have had to give up a haul, but instead they end up giving Trey Jones, who was their backup point guard, their own first, which won't matter because they're going to be good in 2 years, some other picks that don't matter too much. They have a shit ton of picks, and Sadie Sissoko and Zach Collins, who is mid and aging, and Sadie Sissoko is open buns, which is pennies on the dollar for Fox. The Spurs are starting to become one of those front offices like the Thunder, where when you get the call, you hang up and you're getting fleeced. I mean, combined with the Mavs dysfunction, there are Mavs fans quitting and switching sides to their Texas rival, San Antonio. The Spurs absolutely won this trade, giving up nearly nothing to get De'Aaron Fox, who is a perfect fit for Victor Wembanyama. Along with this, they have so much draft capital left to flesh out this roster even more. If I think of the perfect point guard for Victor fit wise, I think of De'Aaron Fox. The only gripe fit wise is that De'Aaron Fox can't stretch the floor too much. He's not too much of a shooter. But I mean, you have maybe the fastest player in the NBA with the ball, which is an absolutely freak of nature, and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, how do you guard this pick and roll? I'm guessing every pick and roll is going to result in a switch by the defense, which can be really helpful if used right by the Spurs coaching, who, by the way, they have the greatest coach of all time, even if he is currently dealing with some health issues and is 80 years old. Um, but with Victor Wembanyama developing a three-point shot this year, the defense has to worry about both the pick and roll and the pick and pop, with Victor Wembanyama just sliding away to the three-point line or driving to the rim. It takes a very versatile defender to defend that well. I mean, whenever you pair a center with an offensive skill set like Wembanyama, we've never seen a skill set like his, by the way, with a driving guard like De'Aaron Fox, you have to really show up aggressively on defense, trying to stop one or the other on the pick and roll game. Oftentimes, if these teams don't have a great defender like that, De'Aaron Fox's driving to the lane will often draw 2 or more defenders into the paint, opening teammates like Wemby popping to the three-point line wide open for three. By the way, De'Aaron Fox is already one of, if not the most efficient pick and roll player in the league without Victor Wembanyama. So offensively, this team is really hard to scheme against, and with the young players evolving, just looking even scarier than we thought they would at this point in time. Anyways, it was a great trade about the Spurs. The Spurs told the teams their offer, gave their final offer, didn't budge, and came out of this trade with De'Aaron Fox not having to give up many valuable assets at all. For the Spurs, this is an A to an A plus grade. For the Kings side, it's kind of mixed. I mean, I think I'm being more lenient on them than most people are. And I guess they got what they wanted with a win now player in Zach Lavine, who's pretty underrated right now. I feel like the only problem being his big old contract. The Kings wanted to stay competitive, even if they aren't actually going to win anything, and their ceiling is probably a close first round exit. But I mean, I get it for them. They missed the playoffs like 20 years in a row and just want to stay somewhat competitive for their fans. It would be rough to go back to a complete rebuild after you get one taste of success. This move isn't to win a championship for the Kings, but we know the Kings have been wanting Lavine. They tried to match his salary and restricted free agency and sign him a few years ago, but the Bulls matched the offer and he ended up staying in Chicago. Zach Lavine reunites with his former buddy DeMar DeRozan, but we've kind of already seen that the fit doesn't work too well together. The picks they got look valuable at first, but really aren't too valuable. They got the 2025 Charlotte first, which sounds really good because the Hornets are open buns, but it's a lottery protected first, which means if the Hornets miss the playoffs, which they will, the Hornets get their pick back, and this first turns into two future seconds. So this 2025 Charlotte first is actually just 2 seconds. The 2027 Spurs first that they got is going to pretty much be a second because we know the Spurs are going to be at the end of the first round in 2 years, barring major injuries from star players. The 2031 Minnesota pick is kind of interesting because we don't know what's going to be happening in 2031. That's a long time from now. So that could be decent. And then 3 second round picks that probably won't turn into anything good. So for Fox, this isn't really too much of a haul, but again, it's not horrible. I'm still confused on if this is like a win or not. I mean, Zach Lavine was playing like a perennial all-star in Chicago, so I guess for somebody who was going to leave anyway, this isn't that bad of a trade for him. They basically just recreated the Chicago Bulls from the last couple of years, but with a better center and Domantas Sabonis. However, being a mediocre to below average playoff team makes more sense in the Kings context, with them only making the playoffs one time in the last like 20 years, and with it being 2 years ago. This is a trade to stay competitive, again, not to win a championship, but still I'll give it a C to a C minus, which again is way nicer than most people are towards this trade from the Kings side. The Bulls are so dysfunctional. I just don't get them at all. At all. In this trade, they got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Herter, and their first round pick. They're just the Cowboys of the NBA and always seem to get whatever they do wrong. They held on to the mediocre three of Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic for way too long, even after they knew there was nothing there. And they're getting nothing for these things. I mean, over the offseason, they traded Alex Caruso to get Josh Giddey. They traded with the Thunder, who have an absolute treasure trove of first round picks. You couldn't get one crappy first round pick for Alex Caruso, or even just a couple seconds. And then with this trade, they got pretty much zero draft capital and zero young prospects. No picks outside of their own. Trey Jones is mid and 25, right? Like he's not going to improve that much more. The Bulls got zero draft capital for Zach Lavine, who I thought was at least worth a first round pick. They got maybe two. They got some slightly below average to decently below average role players, and their first round pick for this year back. But this pick was already top 10 protected, which meant if the Bulls pick would have been top 10 this year, they would have gotten their pick back, which they're definitely finishing top 10 in the draft. They're currently ninth in draft order odds, and are very unlikely to fall outside the top 10, especially with them trading away their decent players finally in selling at the deadline, which will probably make them plummet in the standings more. But if their first round pick didn't convey this year, and it was protected, then it would turn into a first round pick for next year. So I guess they pretty much just got their first from next year back, which I guess is kind of cool. I mean, like they try to tank. It's valuable to have your own first round pick, but I feel like they could have gotten more. Silver lining though, they finally blew it up. Glad they finally realized that this core wasn't winning anything close to a second round appearance, let alone a championship. With Vucevic playing at a near all-star level statistically this season, maybe they can get something pretty good for him before Thursday at the deadline. I get a D plus to a C minus on this trade. Like I said in the video last night, trades happen at 2:59 at the trade deadline for a reason. And if you do a trade days before the trade deadline instead of at the trade deadline, it's for a reason. At least one of these teams probably needed these few days to gear up for another trade. From reports, the Spurs seem to still be active on the trade market, and they're looking for more people to bolster this roster with. I don't mind them doing that as long as they stay patient and don't force it. I mean, they have a bunch of first round picks, but I don't want them giving up too much. You're still building something really good here. But I guess get your people in while you can when the salaries are low. Because you have a great opportunity with Victor Wembanyama is playing as good as he is on this small of a contract. But I don't see what the Kings could do, or if they could do anything major to fix this roster anymore. I'm guessing the Bulls are just going to sell Vucevic. And up until a few hours ago, we thought they were shopping Lonzo too, but apparently they intend to re-sign him. I guess they weren't getting any decent offers on him. I feel like a 2 seconds would have been worth it, but I don't know. Which is a pretty big trade. This has already maybe been the craziest trade deadline ever, at least the most surprising, and the deadline isn't even here yet. That's pretty much all I had to say about this trade, though. So.